HelloFresh takes the guesswork and the extra hassle out of planning and preparing delicious meals for dinner. America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh gives you over 40 recipes to choose from each week. And then your farm-fresh, pre-portioned seasonal ingredients arrive at your doorstep with simple instructions to help you feel like the master chef of your kitchen. And did you know that HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout? HelloFresh has been an awesome addition to our household's dinner routine. We all get involved and cook together, following the pictured step-by-step instructions. It's a fun quality time and the meals are delicious. Give it a try and see for yourself. Go to HelloFresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, to get 50% off plus free shipping, go to HelloFresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
What's up, beautiful people? Matthew Bivens here, and welcome to the podcast. For today's episode, we are jumping all the way back to February of this year. February of this year to bring you a conversation that I had with my friend Kyla Sokol-Ward. In that episode, we talk about sexual energy, and we explore what our relationship with sex reveals about ourselves. And so the reason why I wanted to bring you this episode was because I recently had the chance to talk with Kyla again. We recorded another conversation where we talked all about insecurities in the bedroom. And it was really amazing. We had this one part of the conversation where her and I just go back and forth listing off our biggest bedroom insecurities. And I'm going to be publishing that episode in the next couple of weeks. So in order to warm you up and kind of get you in the mindset for that one, I wanted to publish our very first conversation. So what you're about to listen to is my talk with Kyla Sokol-Ward, where we explore sexual energy. Enjoy. Welcome to the Having It All podcast, the show about what it takes to live an abundant, loving life. My name is Matthew Bivens, and each week I'm helping you get out of your head so that you can truly have it all. Let's do it. Happy Saturday, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today I've got a bonus episode for you, and I'm very excited to share it because, it's a topic that I haven't really gone into much in the show, and that's sexual energy. So I guess it goes without saying that this is an episode you may not want to listen to with some young ears around. However, it is empowering. I will say that. It's a healthy conversation around sex and sexual energy. And, quite frankly, I don't think there's enough of these types of conversations out there. So I'll let you be the judge whether or not you want your young ones to listen. Before I get into that, however, I do want to just share some gratitude and appreciation for you listening, whether this is your first time listening or, your 10th or 20th or whatever. I really am grateful for you, truly, truly am. And this whole show is, I make it for you. It's all about you. And I really love when you all reach out to me and you connect. And I want to shout out one recent listener. Her name is Jeannie. And Jeannie, thank you so much for your email. I appreciate it so much. And I love that you followed up to make sure that I had received the email because it had taken me a little while to get back to you. I love that you were holding me accountable. So thank you so much, Jeannie. And you rock. If you all listening right now would like to reach out to me and connect, currently the best way to do that is through the survey that I'm conducting. It's over at matthewbivens.com/survey. And on the survey, it takes 3 minutes, just 3 minutes. You can leave me feedback. You can let me know what you like about the show, what you don't like, and you can share with me some topic ideas. And I really would love to hear what you all want me to talk about. So again, that's over at matthewbivens.com/survey. And you can always reach me directly, mattcbivens@gmail.com. But right now, if you just have a minute, I just would appreciate filling out that survey. So, okay, let's get into today's conversation because it's a great one. I had a chance to sit down with a friend of mine. Her name is Kyla Sokol-Ward, and she's a women's empowerment coach who helps women be bold and fearless and powerful and awesome and just step into their lives, with their full selves. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing that she does for people. I really love the type of work that she does. And, this is a great episode because we were talking about topics that we wanted to record on, and she pitched the idea of sexual energy. And, I get into this when we, in the conversation, but I was nervous. I felt uncomfortable. And initially, at least internally, I said, no, we're not going to talk about sexual energy. However, I realized that my hesitation and my fear would really, really hold back all of you from having an opportunity to hear an empowering conversation about this. And, it really gave me an opportunity to go through some healing as well, because there was obviously some beliefs and judgments and things that came up for me that manifested as my resistance. So I'm really grateful to Kyla for pitching this idea. And, you guys just have to listen to the conversation. It's a great one. It's one of the longer episodes I've done, and all of it is really fantastic. So with no further ado, here is my conversation with Kyla Sokol-Ward on sexual energy. Kyla, what's going on? Thank you so much for joining me on the Having It All podcast. How are you being today?
I am amazing. Thank you so much for having me, Matthew.
I'm pretty excited about this conversation, and since you and I have just been chatting and sending emails back and forth to really nail down our topic, I've had today circled on my calendar, and so I'm, honestly, and so once again, just thank you. And what we're going to get into today, we're talking about sexual energy, and it's something that I have mentioned on the show before. I've had a few conversations here and there talking about sexual nature type things, but I haven't dedicated an entire conversation to it. And so I think that today is going to open up some people's eyes. I'm sure it's going to make some folks feel uncomfortable, which is great. And I think we're going to rock it. So I'm excited.
Yeah, same here. I'm ready.
Cool. Well, before we get into the meat of the conversation, Kyla, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? I know about you, but just share with those listening who don't know you yet.
Yes, for sure. So I am a women's empowerment coach, and a lot of what I focus on with the women that I work with is empowerment in our beliefs and empowerment in our past, and using our past in order to propel us and give us faith in what's going on currently in our lives, and using all of our old paradigms and belief systems and habits. I truly believe, all of our old beliefs, they're simply habits, and using those to examine what's happening currently in our lives. And one thing that interests me so much about sexual energy, and a lot of what we're going to get into, is just using sex as like a microcosm of how we live the rest of our lives. And I know one thing you and I had talked about briefly is how we do one thing is how we do anything. And sex is obviously a very charged topic, very emotional, very traumatic for some people. And just how does this affect how we go about the rest of our lives in so many other less charged and less emotional areas, and how does this carry through to every part of how we are?
Yeah. It's it's been an interesting part of my journey. Absolutely, the sexual component and my relationship to my own sexuality and to sex in general, and so I know that other folks can relate. And so I have to be honest. I'm going to share this because this show is about transparency, and that's what it's about. When you and I were going back and forth in email and we were trying to really nail down a topic, you sent over, I think, 3 or 4 different ideas in like a bulleted list. And I remember reading them. I don't remember what the other 3 were, which is funny, but I remember the 4th one. And, what you said is you said, I think it would be cool if we talked about using sexuality to access the divine and how we show up during sex, how it defines showing up in life. And I absolutely remember when I read that, I felt uncomfortable. And for a couple of reasons, first it was like, oh man, I haven't really gotten into this on the show. Sex and sexual energy is a big part of my life, but and I've sprinkled things here and there, like I said, but I've never really dove in deep on the show. And second, it flashed through my mind, I was thinking about my wife, Sarah, and I was thinking like, oh, that might make her feel uncomfortable. Or maybe, I feel uncomfortable talking about this with somebody who isn't my wife, which to me is fascinating. And so as soon as that thought went into my head, I said, we absolutely are going to dive in on that topic. And
yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm grateful to you for creating that opportunity for me to have that reflection, to look at some of my old programming and my own paradigms, and to see where I was judging, to see where I was being scarce, and because you set that up by pitching the idea. So thank you so much for doing that.
Oh my goodness, of course. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. That's awesome. I think sexuality is it's like you said, it's a fascinating reaction that you had, that like it's this human thing. Like we know that we're all doing it, and yet there's still, even, we all say, oh, we're comfortable talking about it. Like it's not a bad thing, but like so many of us still have these like weird taboos and like discomfort around it, and feeling like this isn't something that we can talk about openly as just like a thing that we as humans are doing. And there has to be all these like stories around it of like, when is it appropriate? When, like, with whom is it appropriate to talk about this? And so much of it is just stripping away the stories and just letting it be a thing that we're free to feel empowered by.
Absolutely. And, I think that sex is so commonly used to do things like sell products, right? Or to control and exploit people. And we're so used to that. We're comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And so when we want to get into a conversation that is empowering and healthy, that is, talking about sex in a way that uplifts, we're not used to that. And so I've experienced personally a lot of pushback. And, with my wife, Sarah, we have baby Maya, and my wife breastfeeds. And so there are people who have been uncomfortable with my wife breastfeeding in public, and we can tell by the looks. You can tell by the looks and some of the whispers. However, we might be sitting, next to a Victoria's Secret poster with women who are in their underwear with, their breasts pushed up. And it's just, it fascinates me. It's like, really, and it's easy for me, I think, to get a little bit, just a little bit fiery about it, because it's so contradictory. But I love that we're getting into this stuff, because if, you're feeling uncomfortable around the topic of sexuality, if you're feeling uncomfortable talking about sexual energy, it's simply an opportunity. You have a chance to examine your relationship, understand why and where the discomfort comes from, and shift it, and to turn it to something that's healing and empowering. So why don't we set a little bit of context before we jump into, I think the deeper topic of sexuality and divinity. But let's just talk about sexual energy. So can you sort of set the table a little bit and just talk a little bit about sexual energy from your point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason that I even sort of started having this on my radar in my own work and in my personal life is because I'm a pretty avid meditator. I meditate every day. And I noticed in the last, 3-4 months or so, that while I was meditating, I was feeling really turned on, like sexually turned on. And I started to get really curious about this. Like, where is this coming from? And I thought maybe I'm just like turned on. I'm just craving sex. I don't know. And I thought, no, like this is happening only when I'm meditating. And just sort of starting to understand, like, oh, this is life energy that's moving through me. And this is energy that is coming to me when I'm allowing all of my barriers and all of my layers and all of, all my stories to be pulled away, and I'm just there and being fully present.
HelloFresh takes the guesswork and the extra hassle out of planning and preparing delicious meals for dinner. America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh gives you over 40 recipes to choose from each week. And then your farm-fresh, pre-portioned seasonal ingredients arrive at your doorstep with simple instructions to help you feel like the master chef of your kitchen. And did you know that HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout? HelloFresh has been an awesome addition to our household's dinner routine. We all get involved and cook together, following the pictured step-by-step instructions. It's a fun quality time, and the meals are delicious. Give it a try and see for yourself. Go to HelloFresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, to get 50% off plus free shipping, go to HelloFresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
And fully present. And it's sort of the feeling you get when you're traveling, for example, you're fully present. You're not really thinking about your job and all the other stuff you're going on at home. You're just there and you're in it for the experience.
Yeah.
And and sort of thinking about oh, interesting, how is this energy showing up in my life in other ways? And sexual energy just being truly our life energy and the thing that is driving everything. And sex is obviously what creates life. And it being something that allows us to connect with other people, both in the literal physical sense, but also, again, when we are stripping away everything, when two people are willing to strip away everything on an emotional, mental, spiritual level and just sort of be there with each other, sexual energy, automatically becomes present. That's sort of a little piece of what I've uncovered with it.
Man, I like how you said when two people allow themselves to just strip all the bullshit away, that there's energy, right? And then that energy can turn you on. And I know in the past I've had this paradigm, when I was in relationships, of if I felt any sort of attraction towards anybody, whether it was a person that some other person in my life or something I saw on TV or whatever it was, I was made to feel shame. That was sort of in my mind, like this person is making me feel ashamed for this, and so I would associate it with shame. But I mean, it happens, right? You're with somebody and you're being open and honest and vulnerable, or maybe you're just having fun. Maybe you're being incredibly present because you're playing mini golf together or something. You're just having fun, and then the energy starts to move, and that's where I think a lot of times we can start to judge it. Oh shit, I'm feeling turned on right now, but I'm not supposed to because fill in the blank,
Yes. Yeah. There's so much shame of when it's appropriate to feel sexual and when, and yet it's really supposed to be in this little container of a bedroom and, with a specific type of person that we have a specific type of relationship with. And oh yeah, what if we just let that energy just be a part of our being, which it is naturally, but again, we have all the bullshit layered on top that covers it up.
Have you heard of oming, orgasmic meditation?
Oh my God, Matt, I was going to bring it up. It's so funny. I actually just started getting into oming a month ago.
Oh man. When you were talking about your you being in meditation and feeling turned on, I'm like, shit, we got to talk about oming, because it's actually something that I wrote down as one of the things I wanted to get into, because I've been oming for a couple of years, and it's
no way. Oh my God.
Yeah, and it is pretty incredible, and has been it's completely shifted my view of sexual energy and has helped to give me a context around sexual energy, because it's one thing to hear about it and read something, but it's totally different to experience it. So, talk to me a little bit. We might be going off on a tangent, but whatever. Talk to me a little bit about your OM experiences. And by the way, for those listening, OM, it's OM, stands for Orgasmic Meditation. And it's this really fascinating and incredible practice that was popularized by a woman. Her name is Nicole Day-Doan. She did a really fantastic TED Talk about female orgasm. And she created this website and this brand called One Taste. And I'm going to put links to all of this stuff in the show notes. So you can learn more about oming. You can check out One Taste, and you can check out Nicole Day-Doan over on the show notes for this episode. But that's just a little bit of context. So, Kyla, I'm curious. What is your oming experience? What has it been like?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited we get to talk about this, and that you've also experienced it. So oming, for any listeners who don't know, I'll try and explain it super briefly. It's a clitoral stroking practice for females. Like, obviously only the female who has the clitoris is getting stroked. And it's what's really interesting about it is it's in a container, essentially, in that it's pretty like ritualistic. There's like a specific way to do it, specific timing, specific setup for it, which really creates, this feeling of safety and security with it, which is great. And it is totally non-sexual in that, this is not something that needs to be done with a romantic partner. I know a lot of partners that do it, they own with other people, but they have a relationship with one specific person if they are, in a monogamous relationship. And it's not meant to be this like romantic thing that you do with someone. Like, it is meant to be an experience of sexual energy, for the female, and then the male as someone who gives sexual energy and then receives the woman's energy, but without, receiving an orgasm. And it's completely the point of the practice is not orgasm. The point of the practice is just the experience of sexual energy. And what's been so powerful for me in this practice, I just started oming about a month and a half ago. What's been so powerful for me is, again, just that experience of sexual energy without pushing it to climax. Because so much, of course, of, what we're taught about sex is that the point is climax, and like, it's not good sex without climax. Yeah. And that's the whole point of sex is, that's the main experience of it, is the climax part. And, and how can we harness this sexual energy and allow it to flow through us and to sit in it, and not to say, okay, no, like I want the candy, I want the drugs, like I just want the big final ending, and to really sit in that pleasure and to feel what that's like to just be receiving, which so many of us are not used to doing. And one thing that I really love about oming is that it's not about performance, and the woman is really encouraged to, make whatever noises she's going to make, and move or not move in whatever way she's going to. And so much of sex, what we're taught about sex, is about a performance and not about presence. And oming is really about just being fully present, really in the experience and in the energy with your partner, and feeling off of them. It's beautiful. It's been really intense so far. It's amazing.
Yeah. Tell me, I'm going to share a little bit about my oming experience, because I've had some pretty interesting, I've been witness and experienced some pretty interesting things, but I want to know, what has come up for you during the om, like during the strokes, during that 15-minute window? What sort of feelings have come up, emotions have come up, images, energy? Talk to me about what goes on within you, within your mind during that 15-minute oming session.
So one thing that has been really apparent to me is that the point on my clitoris that is most sensitive, which is sort of the whole point of the practice, is like to, touch on that most sensitive spot. The point that is most sensitive is not necessarily the point that feels the most pleasurable. which I at first thought I was like, oh my God, is there something wrong with me? Which, oh my God, that question can apply to like so many things in sex. People think that there's something wrong with them in so many different areas of their sexuality. And I asked a woman who works for One Taste in San Francisco, and she said, oh my God, no, that's like totally the case for most women, is that whatever is most sensitive actually is probably very painful. It's a very painful point on the clitoris. And so in an oming session, I decided like, okay, am I going to explore this painful point and, sit in that pain and be with that? And I did it at one om session, and it brought up a lot of, a lot of emotional pain and a lot of, I'm lucky in that I haven't experienced, any sexual trauma, thank God. But it felt like it was bringing up a lot of past experiences. And I sort of, in my mind, analyzed that as like, maybe there's some things in a past life that I had experienced that was like coming up for me. So, everyone has their own flavors and thoughts on that. But yeah, it's interesting to notice like, oh, I've been avoiding this area that's highly sensitive on my physical body. And are there other areas in my life where I've been avoiding high areas of sensation and just wanting to go to the high pleasure points in my life and just seeking pleasure and not sensation? They are different.
Ah, that's wild. That's cool. I appreciate you sharing that. Just letting what comes up. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
I think that kind of taking a step back, talking about just sexual energy and sexual experiences, when we are in that place, even if it's with ourselves or with a partner, it's like maximum vulnerability. We're literally stripped down. Most of us have sex totally naked, sometimes with socks, who knows, but we're like literally stripped down, and all that we have to bring to the table is ourselves. And so I know for myself, I have experienced so much stuff come up, so many disempowering beliefs, so many judgments, so many criticisms of myself. And when I have fought those, my body has responded and they've come back. So just to give examples. So performance, like how long am I going to last? Am I going to be able to hold my orgasm until she comes? Like I've had that in my mind since I first started having sex at 17. And it wasn't until a few years ago, I'm 31 now, so it wasn't until a few years ago where I really started to explore that and allow it to come up. The same way that you just talked about in your oming, allowing those feelings, that discomfort to come up. And as I've allowed that stuff to come up, I've been able to examine it, and I've been able to see that 9 times out of 10, those feelings happen because I'm not being present. Like when I'm not present, I go into space of judgment and putting expectation on myself. And what happens 9 times out of 10, I'm pulling out to be like, oh no, okay, I don't want to come yet. Like that shit. And I've done that for years, and I've had all sorts of weird little practices to help me last longer, to whatever it was, and man, it wasn't until I just allowed the stuff to come up and I faced it and I looked at it and I explored it and I started to get understanding of it. And for me, it hasn't meant that it's gone away. I'm still feeling those things. Like I'm still having thoughts, performance anxiety type things come up, and it's been years since I've started to explore that, and and that's okay. I think that's just part of it. I think one thing I'm learning for myself is it's a constant journey. Like my sexual journey, there's exploration happening, there's new discoveries happening, there's new awakenings happening, there's growth and there's healing happening, and there's no endpoint to that. It's not like you get to a spot and now, okay, I'm done. There's nothing else for me to learn. There's no new areas for me to explore. So I just wanted to drive in that other direction for a minute. But back to oming. You live in San Francisco. Is there like an oming center in San Francisco? Does One Taste have like a studio there?
Yeah, One Taste has I don't know if it's like their headquarters or if their headquarters is in New York, but they do have a space there. They have a beautiful space, where they hold workshops and stuff like that. So there is definitely a community of Omers in SF.
And is that where you've experienced oming, through their workshops and in that space, or have you taken the practice into your own home or to someone else's home?
Yeah, I did like one of their classes, sort of like their intro class, in early December, and I've practiced several times since then. Like in my home or in others, and it's been it's interesting what you're talking about of like the performance thing, and that's what you're talking about like in a sexual setting, but in oming settings, I've had men say like they notice the desire to like want to make me come during the oming practice, even though it's a goalless practice, as they say. Again, the point is not orgasm. The point is not climax, rather. And so it's interesting that like, even though they know on a logical level, like it's supposed to be goalless, like they still have this desire that like they want to perform and they want to make sure they have this end result. And so it's just interesting. Like we come into everything with like, oh, this is the way that I'm supposed to perform in this setting, and it removes us from the actual experience of it. Totally.
And I have had this paradigm for a long ass time, and it's that it is my job as the man to make my partner come. I've had that, and it's like been ingrained in my mind, and now I'm going back and I'm chiseling that shit out of there because I'm learning and understanding that it's not my job to make anyone come, because reaching that climax is all about you connecting with that source energy, that life energy. And I can help that, but I'm not the cause of that. I'm not the one who actually makes that connection. I can be a part of that experience. And so I totally get it. I totally get what those guys are talking about. And I experienced that when I've owned. Like if I'm feeling my partner start to like heat up, and maybe her breathing becomes a little bit quicker, like I go into that mindset of, okay, my finger needs to go faster, and it's, but that's not the point of oming. And that's what I dig about it. And for me, like you talked about your experience with oming. For me, it's been all about connecting, that connection. The connection with myself and the connection with the person I'm oming with. And I've omed with a number of people, not just my wife, Sarah. I've omed with, a half dozen other different partners, different women that I know. And, learning how to connect has been the goal for me. Like learning how to connect with someone, learning how to connect with myself, not climax. And so that right there is like a paradigm shift. Because I can take that, that new paradigm of connecting with myself, with other people, and I can then use that when I'm making love, so that it's not about climax. It's not me trying to make her come. It's about connection. And then when I've done that, and when I've practiced that in sex, the experiences have been just unbelievable. And I'm not in my mind about performing. There isn't that goal of I need to last longer than she does, because if I don't, then I'm not manly, or whatever the hell it is. It's let me simply connect with this other person. And so what would have been a 15-minute session goes to an hour and a half. And it's mind blowing. And I don't know, it's one of those things that like I wouldn't have believed this shit if I didn't experience it. And that goes a little bit contradictory to what my word for 2018 is, because my word for this year is faith. It's to have trust and surrender. So to say I don't believe it if I don't experience it, that's not having trust. Yeah. But that was my old context, was like, I got to experience something.
At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized, so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 300 programs at asuonline.asu.edu. At Arizona State University, we offer a wide variety of degree programs online to match all kinds of interests and career aspirations. Programs that are taught by the same notable faculty who teach on campus and designed using innovative technology to improve learning outcomes and equip you for post-graduation success. That's why 87% of ASU online graduates indicated they were promoted at work or received an increase in salary after earning their degree. Find your program at asuonline.asu.edu.
And so with oming,
Yeah.
it's been like the experience of it has shifted so much for me. And man, I'm happy we went down this path with oming. It's so cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of, the performance piece resonates with me as well in oming. Like, I noticed myself wanting to come in order to satisfy the man.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's just like it's fascinating of like, oh, like I need to make him feel good about himself in a sexual context. And I want him to feel like he did good and he achieved something and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, just really interesting, like observing that and letting that interesting observation be there and letting it go and knowing like, again, I'm here to be in the experience. I'm not here to make anyone feel good. Like, again, I can't do that for anyone, just like you said. And that's not our job. And, just allowing yourself to be in the experience and not make it about our stories and our performance and all of that.
Yeah. And it's hard. And it's taken me many, many reps, many Om sessions, many incredibly intentional sex, sessions to work on that stuff, to go in with the intention of, okay, if this comes up, I'm going to explore it, as opposed to we're going in here to get our rocks off and peace. Because, and this was shared with me by my coach, that like so many people have a context of sex as it is for procreation, it is for duty, and it is for fun. And for me, like all of my sexual experiences until recently fit into those boxes. It's either to make babies, or it's because we're in a relationship, because I need to make you feel good, because this is how I express my feelings to you, or it's simply for fun, just to get the rocks off, right? And I was unaware of the incredible healing potential of sex and the incredible growth potential of sex and sexual energy. And so that was a big shift for me. And like, that is what we're talking about, because with oming or with this intentional sex practice or, just cultivating and exploring that sexual energy, we're not talking about procreating. We're not talking about duty, and we're not talking about fun. We're going outside of that paradigm. We're going outside of that little box, because sexual energy, man, it's so much bigger than those three things. And, but we're, it's not what we talk about. It's taboo to talk about that stuff, and, so many avenues we could go down.
Yes, totally. One thing I'm like really finding as I'm talking about this more and more in my work is that like young people, like when I say young people, I mean like, let's say 20s and 30s, like people are really craving to be having these types of conversations around sex. Like we're so used to being either from an anatomy standpoint of like what sex is, or from like this like really like masculine minded sexual viewpoint of like, oh, like I fucked someone and this is how it was. And it's like people are craving to be seen in all areas of their lives, sex totally included. And like people want to talk about it in a way of like, how are we showing up during sex? And like, are we being ourselves during sex, or are we performing as someone else? And, what does that feel like? What does it look like? How do we really want to be during sex? And like, do we want to show up as someone who's totally wild, or someone who's super soft, or like really commanding? Like, what are these different personas we can take on, and that we will naturally take on when we strip away all of our stories during sex? And like people are craving this totally.
Yeah, and it's interesting how you said that. Like I've experienced it in one way to kind of help people to ground this in how you vocally express. Like that has been something that's come up with, in my sexual relationship with Sarah, and as well as with oming and getting into other experiences of other people. It's that vocalization. And that one, it's a small area, yeah. However, it is indicative of allowing yourself to be who you want and to show up the way that you want within a sexual act or within a sexual experience without judgment. And so, like, one of the things that has come up with Sarah has been, like, the amount of vocalization. You know, and stifling and not wanting to be too loud, not wanting to be too expressive, because that's not what you're supposed to do, because you aren't supposed to have a great time. You're not really supposed to enjoy the experience as much as your male partner, because sex is really about the man, and it's really for his pleasure. And if me as the woman, if I'm experiencing too much pleasure, then there's something wrong. Like, those types of thoughts, you know, we're going on with Sarah, and then through expressing that and well, first of all, through her being courageous enough to kind of go inward and explore that stuff, and then to share it with me, we've now been able to work on it and to really, you know, be intentional about sex. And that's where I think sex can be incredibly healing, because, you know, those disempowering standpoints or beliefs or those judgments, you know, about expression, about opening up, about, you know, saying what you want and being willing to fully receive, those things can, like, the disempowering things within there can be healed through sex, because that's where you can practice it. You know? And, like, we need that practice, because you aren't going to heal that shit just by talking about it. By getting in a group of people and just kumbayaing and say, man, you know, I really want to be more expressive. Like, no, the healing happens when you get into the practice, when you get into the mix. And that's why I love this stuff.
Yes, it's amazing. And sex is such a, like, it's like a real fast track with all of this. Like, there are a lot of ways to practice being more communicative, more expressive, more vocal, whatever it might be. But like we said, it's like sex, you are stripped down. It is just you and this other person, probably. Maybe there's more, whatever you're into. But yeah, and like, how can you be like, are you willing to show up and just like let yourself be free and be wild? And yeah, it can be so healing, because again, like, when you show up as fully present, it gives your partner the same permission to show up as fully present. And then when you're both in it together, it's like total magic can happen, total healing can happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where you have those experiences where it's like, I went to heaven and I came back down, and oh my gosh, and like, that doesn't happen when you're not tuned in. That only happens when you're tuned in and you're present, and, you know, like, yeah. So I really do believe there's such power in, like, there's such raw sexual energy within us that wants to be expressed. And I think it's so important to allow ourselves to express that, because it's energy, right? And you don't destroy energy. Energy can't be destroyed. It's going to go somewhere. So it's wanting to come out, and, you know, it's going to come out in some way. And so I think it's much more healing, and it's much more authentic and real for you to be able to just express what you want. You know, and to say those things. But, man, I know that it's so fucking hard sometimes. So hard. Like, you know, there are times that I wish I could step back into my brain and my body, you know, 10 years ago, to see what was stopping me from fully expressing, fully sharing what I wanted with the person I was with at the time. You know, and I know that I had such fears. I know that, you know, for example, I did not feel monogamous in previous relationships, yet monogamy was what I was, quote unquote, supposed to do. So when I felt any sort of, like I said earlier in the top of the episode, when I felt like any sort of desire or any urge, any sexual energy that wasn't pointed at that one person, I felt wrong. You know, I felt shameful, and I felt like I needed to hide it. But here's the thing. That energy and that desire, it didn't go away. it didn't go away.
Yeah.
So, like it wasn't like I was able to destroy that energy because you can't do that. So I just pointed it somewhere and I aimed it at pornography. And I did that shit for years in secret. I was in a 4-year relationship, and for all of those 4 years, until probably the last couple of months, she had no idea that I was secretly watching porn regularly. And
Yes.
if someone out there will tell me that that is a healthy way of being, then we can shake hands and part ways, because there was nothing healthy about suppressing that energy and stifling that expression and living in that state of fear. And that's what I did for many, many years. So I'm telling that to the person out there who is in that space right now, who doesn't want to express, who doesn't want to, who's afraid of being their honest and authentic self, and then who's experiencing a shit ton of judgment and self-inflicted shame and punishment because of it.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So much yes to all of that. Yeah. And it's like, pornography can be a healthy outlet when it's not covered in shame. It's like it's all so much about like what our intention is going into it and what the feelings are surrounding it. And so much of what you're saying is also reminding me of like the importance of a sexual practice, because a lot of people, they might be listening to this and say like, okay, all of this sounds great, but like, I don't have a partner. Like I don't have someone that I want to have sex with. And that like so much of this healing can be done on your own. And that like, again, the sexual energy sprouts within ourselves. And, like healing can be done on your own, and it is our life energy. And there's so much magic that can be done with like a solo sexual practice. And that I'm not just talking about masturbation, though that, can be a part of it. But yeah, that like just being within your own sexuality and allowing that sexual god or goddess to come out and to be a part of your being. Whoa, so healing, so powerful, and so empowering.
Yeah, it really is. And empowering is a great way to put it, because I don't know, like as I have allowed myself to open up and to, express what I want and to receive and to give fully, like I felt like a sexual god, like trying to say that humbly, but like I have felt my word last year for 2017 was beast mode, and beast mode had so much to do with how I showed up sexually with whoever it was with myself, with other people. Like it just was about me being in that powerful space and harnessing that sexual energy in a powerful and very intentional way. And so, oh man, I'm like looking at the time. We've been flowing for a little while. See, this is what happens.
We're flowing.
Yeah, like when you get on something that's real and honest, that like we can just talk about forever. It's just the time just melts away. So
yes, totally.
I think a great way to wrap up is going back to what you just talked about, and maybe giving people some practical next steps for the person who has a partner that they want to explore some of this with, or a person who doesn't have a partner who wants to explore this with themselves. Let's each talk about some very tangible things that people can do to just either become more aware of their relationship towards sex and sexual energy, or to get into a new practice if they're in that place and they actually want to start practicing something new. What are some things that you can share with people that they can do next?
So one thing that has been super present in my own life recently that I know will resonate with a lot of people is sort of focusing on like the different. I sort of see it as like two different sides of sexual energy. Like there's one that's sort of that raw, commanding, driven, like sink your teeth into its side type of energy. And yeah, that's really sort of like dominating. So there's that, which a lot of women specifically don't allow themselves to explore, because it feels like that's the man's job, is to be commanding. It's the man's job to hold control in sexual experiences. So there's like that side of it, and then there's also the side of surrender, of like sexual surrender, and like the softness and the lightness and the being taken care of sexually, and yeah, and I think both men and women can kind of struggle with that as well. Yeah, and so taking those two sides and allowing yourself to explore either one or both, if there are things that, you're not comfortable, if you haven't been comfortable diving into fully. Yeah, those are two sort of sides of sex that I think can be really powerful to explore more fully. And so that can be, that's something that you can do with a partner, and also with yourself. And one thing that I really do to get myself into that space alone, because I right now don't have a sexual partner, and but I do have like a sexual self-care practice. And for me, what that looks like is like putting on really sexy clothes that I feel really sexy in, and like romancing the shit out of myself, like putting on sexy music and like turning the lights down low, like eating dark chocolate. Dark chocolate is my sexy food. And like letting myself just dance and move and like put my hands through my hair and let it be this really beautiful, sexy experience. And to just, again, it's like being in that sexual energy and, just the experience of my sexuality without it being about sex itself or about climax.
That's awesome.
And that's something that, men can do as well. Yeah.
That's so cool. Now, so obviously when you're describing that, there was some visualizing going on in my mind. And tell me, I know for myself, like I have experienced tremendous drive to get shit done when that sexual energy is flowing through me. And so like for the people out there who are maybe a little bit skeptical about this, maybe you don't connect so much with the conversation of quote unquote energy or things like that. Mm-hmm. I know for myself, like I've had, coming out of an amazing sex experience or an amazing OM, like I've had this drive in me to get shit done, and that just looked like me like jumping on the computer and getting some work done, or picking up the phone and making some business deals. Like I have translated and transmuted that energy into money, like, and not by like pimping myself out or anything, but like I've just taken that excitement and then channeled it and focused it into productive activities. And so I think, like, have you experienced that is what I'm dancing around? Have you experienced that yourself, where you get this sexual energy and then it spills over into other areas of your life?
Oh my God, totally. A good orgasm can like resurrect you if needed. Like seriously, like, yeah, completely. Like I find myself, I'm more creative. Like I have like bigger ideas, better ideas. I'll like get ideas in my business, like while I'm in this state of sexual flow. I feel more open with people, or I'll have the habit of like texting someone like some, really beautiful thought or something while I'm in this state. It totally goes through every part of life. I take like regular dance breaks while I'm working because it gets me into that state of flow. And again, it's like, even though those dance breaks might not feel sexual, like it's that same type of, I wanted to use the word energy, but it's that same type of feeling of just like being myself and being playful and being sexy. It totally allows you to just like be inside of your creativity. And again, like creativity only happens when we're present, just like all of this other stuff that we're talking about. Like it's really all about the presence.
It is. And cool. Well, I want to give my next steps, my action items to people. For myself, I have had many disempowering thoughts around sex and around how I need to show up. A lot of judgments, things that I've mentioned many times already in this episode, in this conversation. So I think one great place to start is to become aware of your conversation around sex. Become more aware of your relationship to sex, to sexual energy, to sexual experiences, to all of that, because I think there's real power in that awareness. And one specific area that you can use to, like I have used to discover like where my mind is at, is right after orgasm. Right after orgasm, I realized I was feeling shame. I would feel shame. And the shame would be because I came too quickly, because she still had more left in her, and I wasn't able to satisfy her because I came when I was watching porn, and that was wrong. Whatever it was, right? And so it was that moment after orgasm and those, those couple of seconds or minutes after orgasm where when I became aware of that, I was like, holy shit, there is some stuff going on in my head that is obviously fucking me up in the bedroom, but how I'm showing up here is how I'm showing up in the rest of my life. So I need to explore this stuff. And so what happened is I started to tap into what was coming up for me before I would engage. So as as those feelings were coming up, what was like as the drive, as the urge was coming up, the sexual urge, what were those thoughts that were going through my head, and starting to explore that for myself. So that's one tangible action item for people. That moment after orgasm, what's coming up for you? Is it healing? Is it empowering? Is it loving? Or is it scarce? Is it fearful? Is it judgmental? I think another thing for anybody who's just curious about oming, go check out, the website is onetaste.us. Onetaste, O-N-E, taste.us. And just check it out. If you're curious, like oming is interesting. And when I first was introduced to it, I'm like, what the hell is this? This is some weird shit.
Right, yeah.
But I was open. And so if you're curious about it, go check it out. You can also watch Nicole Daedon's TED Talk. It's Nicole, Nicole, Daedon, Daedone, and her TED Talk is titled Orgasm, the Cure for Hunger in the Western Woman. It's such a cool title. And go check those things out. Like, explore your curiosity. Explore your curiosity is my point number 2.
Yeah.
And my final third takeaway is work on expressing yourself and being okay and being comfortable expressing yourself authentically. And it could start by saying, oh, that's too hard, or too fast, or touch me here, or I like it when you do this. Work on that expression. Work on saying what it is that you would like to feel. Work on setting an intention, before you go into the bedroom next time. Say, I would like to experience this or that. Work on really being in that co-creative place with your sexual self, and I can guarantee there's going to be some cool magical things that'll come out of that. So those are my 3 big takeaways. Kyla, thank you so much, not only for sparking this by, sending out the email and helping to create this topic, but by being open and vulnerable and sharing, like, just truthfully and honestly. Thank you for being willing to go there with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, you're so welcome, Matt. And thank you for also your openness and your willingness, your vulnerability. And I think this is like a beautiful doorway, and hope it gives lots of other people permission to be having these conversations about sex. And again, in ways that aren't just about like the physical how-tos, and just like our experience of it as humans. And this doesn't need to be something that's only talked about between partners. So I hope it opens up a lot more of that as well. But yeah, this is part of our human experience, and how is it affecting the rest of our lives?
Totally. And I know that this has impacted folks. I already know it. And so I'm excited to hear some of that feedback from listeners. And if you out there listening have anything you want to share on this topic, if you have thoughts, if you agreed or disagreed and you wanted to just tear into us, that's cool. Shoot me an email, mattcbivens@gmail.com. And Kyla, where can people go to connect with you, to learn more about what you do and find out more about what you offer?
Yes. So people can find me on my website, which is KylaSW.com. And the spelling for that, I'm sure, will be in your show notes as well. It's easy to misspell my name. And on there, they can download a guide on self-care practices that no one is teaching you. I know there's a lot of stuff in the internet world about self-care. Hoping to give a different taste on it for people, things that we're not always hearing. And they can also find me on Instagram. I love Instagram, super active there. My handle is my full name, Kyla Sokol-Ward. Also easy to misspell, so that'll be in your show notes as well, I'm sure. And those are the 2 places where I'm most active, where I like to play the most, and always happy to hear from people. Again, yeah, if you agree, disagree, one of my 2018 goals is to be more polarizing and to have more people disagreeing with me. So if you hated this, please let me know.
That's awesome. And I will definitely have links to everything, all of your stuff, your website, social media handles, all of that will be in the show notes. And Kyla, you rock. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Quick note about the Having It All podcast. I am not a doctor nor a licensed therapist. I'm a guy with a story and a passion for conscious conversation. My thoughts, opinions, and beliefs are my own. So please consult with your doctor or healthcare provider regarding any questions or issues you have related to your personal, physical, or mental health.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.